third segment of the night, Brian. Let's talk defense. And we are going to go over your defensive keys to
You're
victory.
part of the Irish breakdown team. Would my keys be any different than yours?
Not so far. No,
Okay,
not at all.
So there you go. You can say hour.
All right, I'll take it. All right, so let's go over our keys to victory revisited here for the defense. And I'm interested to see where you go with a few of these, but let's jump right off with your first one. It was just very simple. Be disciplined. And I have a feeling that has to do, obviously with eye discipline and knowing your role, knowing your job, doing what you're supposed to do. Exactly. Where you can really mess up against the triple option. And we talked about this a million times. It's when you try to do someone else's job and then you end up not doing your job. And then that's when you get creased. And that's when big plays happen. And you've got to be disciplined. You've got to block out the noise of what other guys are doing around you and just focus on what you're doing, because that's what a triple option offense wants you to do. They want you to fall asleep. They want you to get bored of what you're doing, play in and play out. And they want you to try to make up for your buddy. And being disciplined is a very, very key part of being a good defense against triple option. So in your opinion, sir, did they pass that test?
Well, Vince, I'm gonna be honest with you. Going into grading the defense and just kind of my gut feel watching it live, I was probably thinking like leaning towards a minus. But when you break the game down, I'm actually giving them a check on this one. Like they did what they needed to do.
That's where I'm at.
Navy had some big plays, and I know that's also part of it. And on all of those big plays, there was somebody who didn't do their job. There was somebody that didn't either attack their assignment correctly, someone who didn't take a proper angle. Like I'm watching this play against Navy, the 47-yard touchdown run, and Jaden Alsbury is doing a great job of, he's got to play the pitch man, right? And Jack Kaiser's got to play the quarterback. He's got to play over the top of the quarterback. He sees the puller. He takes on the puller, but he takes him on really square. And he's got to play over the top, because if he plays over the top on that puller, he funnels the quarterback right into Josh Burnham. And then also Jalen Sneed takes a really poor angle on the play as well and knocks into Xavier Watts. So there was, and I thought Xavier didn't do a very good job. He went underneath a guy instead of going over top of a guy. There just was a lot wrong with that particular play. And so, they didn't do their jobs on that play. And then on the 60-yarder, it was a very similar situation where you had Kingston Viliama Asa, who otherwise I thought played a pretty darn good football game. Just over pursuit. He saw run away, and every time in his life that he's ever seen run away, it's okay. I got to flow to the ball, and against this option, no. When you're seeing that, you got to still protect that backside A gap. You got to do that, and so those type of things, Vince. You look into it and you say, hey, listen, that's kind of part of what you do, and that was a big moment in that game. So I thought that. I'm actually watching that particular play now. So like they ran just a jet sweep, and Kingston sees it and he goes flying. Well, a power read is you've got to play the power. So the front side linebacker's playing the jet sweep. You've got to play the power. You've got to be the cutback guy. And he goes flying out because he thinks the running back's got the ball. Freshman mistake. And then you've got, Jalen Sneed turning the guy loose, a Don Schuler turning the guy loose. You had about 4 or 5 plays in the game where somebody messed up on their assignment. But out of 60-some plays, I think Georgia Tech or Navy ran, 60 plays? 57 snaps. 5 out of 57 snaps is too many that I would like, but the reason Navy did very little outside of those 5 plays is because of outside of that,
they played on those other ones. Yeah.
I mean, correct. Right. So like you gave up a 60-yard run on the one play, and Navy got no points out of that. Why? Because they buckled down and did their jobs after that. So you had 100. So Blake Horvath finishes that game with 129 yards of rushing. 107 of those came on 2 carries. You had a 32-yard gain in there, and you had I believe a 21-yard gain by Navy. So that's 160 yards on 4 plays. They finished with 150 yards. So that means on the other 53 plays, you only gave up 150 yards, which is 2.8 yards per play, which is why they only have 14 points.
Right.
So my initial feel of the defense watching the game was they weren't that great. And they still made too many mistakes. But they flew around, they were physical, and outside of a few plays, they dominated. Now, those few plays count, which is why this isn't a plus, right? But if you just cleaned up 2 of those, the numbers they would have had in this game defensively would have been exceptional. So I'm giving them a check. I feel better about the performance of the defense after breaking down the film than I did with my live gut feeling. There's still too many mistakes, but even the mistakes, didn't get to this quite quickly enough, but they were like 6-yard gains, 7-yard gains. They were not getting gashed like Navy has done to them in the past. I mean, almost every year when Notre Dame struggles with the option, there's at least 2 fullback dives that break.
Yeah.
None of that in this game. They ate the fullback up in this game. I think the biggest run that Teska had in the game was a jet sweep. I think, you know what I mean? Overall, Vince, I think they did their job outside of a few plays. And so I give them a check for discipline. For the most part, they did this well.
Right. It's not a plus because you can't give up over 100 yards on 2 plays to the quarterback. But it's a check. I completely agree with you. I think overall, I said to you as we were watching, I was watching the defense back and, watching the all-22 and everything. I was like, well, my biggest takeaway from this is how friggin' athletic and fast the skill players are.
Yes.
Like that's my biggest takeaway.
He did text me that.
It's like,
they're really fast.
They're so fast. And we're going to get to one of the reasons that allows them to be fast in a second. But it's just this defense just moves so quickly. And even when there is a slight mistake in protecting or in defending the option, sometimes speed can overcome that. Sometimes speed and athleticism overcomes that. And your slight mistake ends up being a 2 to 3 yard gain as opposed to, something in the backfield or something along those lines. So that was definitely part of the be disciplined part, is just they were just really freaking athletic and getting to the football very, very quickly and very, very fast. So that's definitely part of it. So I agree with you. I can't give it I am a stickler when it comes to the option, and either you defend it or you don't, and they didn't a few times, and so I can't give them the plus.
If they would have tackled Horvath on the first long touchdown run and then held them to a field goal, I'd have given them a plus, because none of the big plays would have led to scores or led to touchdowns. So, because I think their first half, the play of the first half, the big mistake that they made on that, you had the blown coverage on the muff, that kind of happens. And then you had the 15-yard penalty from Riley Mills where he got hands in the face because the guard's short and he just shouldn't have done that. It was a mistake. But none of those other plays, if you made that one stop on the long run and tackled them at like the 15 and did what you did on the other play, which is held them to a field goal or attempt, then I might have given them a plus, because they're going to get big play. They're going to get at least a couple.
How the option works, man.
It was a couple too many. Yeah. And the one led to touchdowns for me to give them a plus. But overall, like I said, this is why we do this show, man. It's not to remind everyone how great our calls were after the game. It's like, look, we looked at the film and some things we got right and some things like I feel better or I feel worse about this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I felt a lot better about the play of the defense after I broke down the film.
Yep. Yeah.
Outside of 6 or 7 plays.
I would take that defense into battle against any triple option team. Look, Navy's triple option, and yes, they're in shotgun and blah, blah, blah. I get it. But they run it with about as good a proficiency as you're going to find this particular team, right? I mean, I realize Navy as a whole is what they do, but we've seen Navy teams when they're really, really good at triple. This team's really, really good at it. And Notre Dame shut it down for the most part. Yeah. And I think that needs to be said as well.
And we've heard a lot about how this is a much better passing Navy team. And we've talked a lot about this is a much better passing Navy team. And it is. Notre Dame made them look like a triple option team throwing the football.
Correct.
2 busted plays on coverage, and outside of that, they couldn't complete passes with any consistency whatsoever.
Yep. Absolutely. Agree. I mean, they had 88 yards of passing. 88. I mean, that's
and 53 of them were on blown coverages.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, Okay. Number 2, dominate the trenches. And this is where I was going, and I didn't want to trample on key number 2 too much when I was talking about how fast and athletic the secondary and the linebackers are. Part of the reason for that is the guys up front were not allowing Navy to get to the second level and allowed those guys to just roam free. I mean, I thought the front did an admirable job against this Navy offense and what they were asked to do, and what they, especially the guys on the edge. That's not an easy thing to do a lot of times against a triple option team. I thought the front held up very, very well, and I thought they one of the main things is they didn't allow Navy to get to that second level and allowed those guys in the back to just wreak havoc on this offense.
No. You had the linebacker mistake on the 60-yard run off the jet sweep action. It was not a traditional triple play. And then the other one was an outside run where they got the big yards. Navy did very little inside between the tackles. And that's a big part. That's the defensive line. I thought all 4 tackles that played. I thought Heinisch played a good game. I thought Rubio played a good game. He had a great red zone tackle. They ended up scoring on the next play, but I think it was second down. He reaches out, he dives for the guy and trips him up, and it wasn't necessarily his gap. He just saw the ball and went and made a play. And I thought Cross and Mills were very good. You had the bad mistake by Riley on the penalty, and then he did miss a tackle in the backfield, but he's very forceful at the point of attack. Howard, who I thought was very good, held the point very well. They were very disruptive, and and to the point you made, Vince, they kept the Navy offensive line at the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing. They didn't get moved off the ball, and they kept Navy's offensive line at the line of scrimmage, which allowed their linebackers to fly downhill and make a lot of plays.
Yeah.
So, I mean, normally when an option team is rolling, your safeties are going to have a lot of tackles. And when you look at Notre Dame's defense, here was their top 10 tacklers in the game. Linebacker, safety, end, safety, linebacker, D-tackle, linebacker, safety.
And that's safety, second team safety, by the way.
And also had a tackle on special teams.
Yeah.
So, your front did a lot of good things in this game. So I give them a plus.
Well,
I won't give them a plus. I give them a check. It leans more to plus because I still wanted to see a couple more plays on the ball. That's my only thing. There wasn't a lot of – they only had 2 tackles for loss the entire game. D-line had none of them. You know what I mean? That's the only thing that keeps them from a plus. It wasn't like a brilliant. It was they just did their job and they did it well. So I give them a check. Maybe go check plus, which we said there's variations to it, but they played well. They did their job and they did their role.
Well, and the other piece of this for me is the fact that the fullback didn't get going in this game.
Neither of them.
Yeah, anytime.
Their number 2 fullback rushed for over 100 yards against Notre Dame 2 years ago.
Correct.
He's their backup.
Yes.
And they completely shut those 2 guys down, and they're good football players.
Yep. And that's why I'm going plus on this one. Personally, they shut down your number one goal is the defense, whether it's tactical or otherwise. Your number one goal is shut down the fullback. They 100% did that. They allowed the guys behind them to move around. Yeah, in triple. Yep, absolutely. So it's a plus for me. I understand where you're coming from. It's a plus.
I'm not going to push back on you. I mean, it's like they did what they needed to do and did it well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. All right. Key number 3. And I think I know where you're going to head with this one, but it is tackle well.
I'll give them a check again. They had too many misses for me to give them a plus.
I agree.
Riley had the miss in the backfield. You had Drake had a miss on what could have been a tackle for loss. He missed. It turns into a 7-yard gain. Adon had a miss. Christian Gray had a miss. That just off the top of my head, there was enough missed tackles for me to say you could have played better. But they did their job, and the missed tackles didn't turn into big plays. They were, because I think this is thing to me. There's 2 aspects of tackling well. Step 1 is the first guy that arrives at the ball. Don't miss tackles. Step 2 is, are you flying to the ball as a defense? To where if a guy, so here's a perfect example. Jalen Snead has a chance to get a guy in the backfield, doesn't get it, but he forces the guy to go around him.
Yep.
And I can't, who was it that made the play? Was it Christian Gray?
It
or
might
was
have
it a
been.
safety? Was it a Don? But somebody comes and cleans it up
Yeah.
and makes the play.
Because
And so you're
he
like,
forced him to go horizontal
yeah.
when he was
So you're
trying to
like,
go vertical, forced him to go horizontal. Yeah, right.
yes, it'd have been nice if Jalen would have made that play, but he was disruptive. And then the
Mhm.
second guy in was there, not Jalen misses the tackle, and then the guy's outside and there's nobody there. You guys are getting blocked. And you know, the Riley misses on the play in the backfield. The guy got tackled for like I think a 2-yard gain. You know, so it's like you watch them play, Vince, and it's like, yeah, I would have liked them tackle a little bit better and the first man in, but they were just flying to the ball. And there was
Yeah.
you look at the statistics, they had 23 solo tackles and 46 assisted tackles because they're just guys were flying to the ball. There was just nowhere for Navy to go. And that factored in my opinion, to the turnovers.
Absolutely.
Yes, they weren't quote unquote forced, but they had to, because of how fast Notre Dame was, and the fact that Al Golden wasn't doing the run stunts and he wasn't crashing and he wasn't overplaying things. He was he knows he has athletes and he schemes to their athleticism. So you're letting the defensive ends do more two-man playing than we've seen them ever do, in my opinion, successfully. We've seen them try it, but they haven't had the ends to do it. In this game, they did. You know, so I think Navy was a little bit shook by how there's plays they're running, and you're thinking, uh-oh, and then somebody comes flying downhill, and it's like a 3-yard gain. And I think they got a little bit shook.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's where I think it's at. It's like that got in their heads a little bit because I mean, looked at the one that they were rushing stuff, like the pitch he had. He was rushing it because I think he was worried, like, if I play this out too much, this Burnham kid, who I just saw in film 2 weeks ago, break up one of these plays and return it. You know what I mean? And they got a touchdown off of it. You know, I think it got in their heads. It got in their heads that they were rushing stuff because they were concerned about the speed of the Notre Dame defense. So,
agreed.
I give him a check.
Yeah, it's a check for me.
And I would lean more towards plus than I would minus, you know, so maybe a check plus. I just thought the pursuit to the football was outstanding. And then, you know, again, that Leonard Moore play was huge. That was a huge tackle in this game, chasing that guy from behind. I love what D. Troll Hunter said. He says, you know, had the angle. He goes, actually, Leonard Moore didn't actually have the angle initially. He's just so freaking fast that he caught the guy from behind. And he's a spot on. He did not have the angle.
No,
it reminded me that. Do you remember that spring a few years ago when Dexter Williams, it was in the stadium, and Dexter Williams takes off running.
What you're gonna say.
And you're like, he's about to house it. And then Troy Pride, who did not have the angle
from the other side of the field.
Yes. And he ran a 4.4 flat.
Right.
You know, and it reminded me so much of that play. And he just got to him so quickly. And Notre Dame didn't give up points. 2 times this year, Leonard Moore has chased a guy from behind on a long play. First time he forces a fumble, Notre Dame recovers. Second time he tackles the guy, and then the defense holds firm, and they force a missed field goal. Like, that's huge. That's hustle. He could have been like, oh, crap, you know, that's a big play. I'm jog over. No, he went and hustled. So that's part of this too, Vince.
Yeah.
Is that right there. And they did what they needed to do.
I like how you added in the gang tackling and the flying of the football, because
that's part of tackling.
It's absolutely part of it. And look, that's a signature of Al Golden's defenses right now is the fact that they are just flying to the football. There's no doubt. If I
miss a tackle, Vince, and the guy goes for 60, that should be viewed very differently as a defense than if I miss a tackle and the guy goes for 2 yards because the guy after me is there to make the play.
Correct. Yeah.
That's team tackling. So, yes, you're still getting the minus for the missed tackle, but as a defense, that's impressive.
Right.
And that's what this defense has.
And I'm in the check window as well, just because there were some misses early that were not good. So I don't want to go plus, but it's a check plus for me. Like if we're going down that road, it's a check plus. I think that's kind of where they are for me. There's a lot of good tackling, and there was just a few misses that prevent me from going to the plus category. So that's where I'm at with this. Final key to victory revisited. Limit big plays. And this is huge against Navy specifically. And I'm going to pull a piece of what you said in here. Navy ranks 6th in college football in plays of 40 yards or more at 13, which included 6 plays of 40 yards or 6 pass plays of 40 yards or more. They know how to big play people, and they had been doing it. And they gave up 0 in the pass game, and they gave up 2 in the run game. And again, they were both to the quarterback, but they only gave up 2 in this game, and it didn't end up hurting them in the long run. One led to points, one didn't.
I give him a check. Again, it can't be a minus because you gave up the touchdown on the one.
Absolutely.
And then the miss on the muff blown coverage that went for 21 yards. That's a big play. That also ended with a touchdown. And so, you can't give those up, but to get a plus, but to get a check to say, hey, you did your job. I mean, yeah, absolutely. And again, the tackle by Leonard Moore on the 160-yard gain ended up being huge because they ended up not scoring. So, and this is something I said in the show that Trevor and I did on Thursday. Look, they're going to get a couple big plays, but you got to make sure they don't go for points. The first one did, the second one didn't. And the whole point is if you with your defense, if you make them run more plays, yeah, they get a big play, fine, tackle the guy. And then make them run more plays to get in the end zone. And that's exactly what they did on that second long run. And Navy got 0 points out of that drive because they missed a field goal. And that's why you do what you do. So, I mean, Vince, just the numbers speak for themselves. They had 4 plays of over 20 yards. I would have liked to have not have been 4, especially when 2 of them were on blown coverages. But, it's going to happen, especially when you consider how young this defense is. That's the other thing, the other part of it, Vince, you have to think about. In this game, Notre Dame on the defensive line started 2 redshirt sophomores and played another redshirt sophomore and Donovan Heinisch a bunch. They started a true sophomore and a redshirt freshman at linebacker. They started a true sophomore, a true freshman, and a redshirt freshman in the secondary, and brought a true freshman off the bench at linebacker. Like, because Jordan Clark, I mean, think about it. Their starting lineup, you got rid of a 6th-year senior in RJ Oben and added a redshirt sophomore and Junior Tuamaka. You got rid of a 6th-year senior in Jordan Clark. Not that he did anything wrong, but it's just the way that the
way they went about it. Yeah.
And you added a redshirt freshman in this, right? So you got younger in this matchup against Navy than you already were. And when you consider that, and that's the context of it, and you consider that, you think, boy, it's a surprise they didn't make more big plays. But that's how good this defense is. That's why I said, Vince, when I really studied the game and really thought about it, I was like, you know what? I came away with a much more positive view of the play of the defense than I did watching it live. And again, there's still a lot to to critique from a coaching standpoint. Principles that you could carry over into, because there's other teams that are going to run power read against you besides just Navy. That's not a option-only play, and you've got to defend that correctly. So you'll learn those things. But overall, Vince, I mean, they did what they needed to do. And when you consider how young they are, it was incredibly impressive with the performance that they had. This is a very talented young group of defensive players. Very talented.
That's going to do it for our defensive keys to victory revisited. We've got one more segment coming your way, so make sure you stick around. But in the meantime, make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, that notification bell. Share with your family and friends. Throw us a 5-star review over on the podcast side of things. That'd be awesome as well. And then, of course, jump on the boards@irishbreakdown.com. All kinds of good stuff waiting for you and will be uploaded in the next 24 to 48 hours. So make sure you join the discussion over at boards@irishbreakdown.com.